Welcome to BAM, Badass Moms with Lori and Jenny. We are moms on a mission to share women's stories about life, fitness, aging, relationships, travel, and much more. Hello, friends, and thanks for listening. I just wanted to take a second to give you a quick reminder about subscribing to the show. If you have not already, just take a moment and do so. This will make sure that you never miss a daily bite or an upcoming episode. And in addition to that, if you have a few extra moments and like to drop us a review, we'd really appreciate it. And there's also a sponsor of the show located at the bottom of all of our episodes. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for being badass. Hello, friends, and welcome to BAM, Badass Moms with Lori and Jenny. Today, we have such a fun, loving, kick-ass mom on our show who I like to sum it up and say basically the just do it kind of mom. Barbra has such a wonderful story. Not only is she Canadian-born, she is an actress and a playwright. On top of that, she has 2 high school kiddos. She has a 5th degree black belt. She taught school in Japan, met her husband in Japan, and got married in Japan, and also is a hockey playing mom. Such a fun story. We can't wait to share it with you today. Barbra, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thanks for doing this amazing podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're badass, the two of you.
Let's talk the listeners through how we kind of connected and a kind of a different world of ice hockey, random enough, how we kind of realized we had a connection and how we knew each other or didn't know each other, but had a mutual friend, and then kind of led us down a path of learning more about each other.
Yeah, that was kind of neat because I walked into the dressing room and there's Lori and I don't know how did it
I had an Epic Ride hat. So I had an Epic Ride hat on.
Oh, you had Epic Ride, right.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, hey, I've been to Epic Ride. My friend Peggy used to work there. She goes, you know Peggy? I'm like, everyone knows Peggy.
Which is everyone does know Peggy.
Peggy now lives in France. And she she had been teaching a class at Epic Ride. So of course, found out that you had owned that, which was so cool. And there we are getting on our hockey gear. And it was just one of those like, oh, this is going to be a good team, you know?
Yeah, it was a good connection. And you know, our mutual friend, Peggy, who's amazing and wonderful, just finding out how, the world is so big, but so small when you meet those people and those mutual connections. And then, I started to find out more about Barbra, how she's a history of actress, current actress, just a whole, 5th degree black belt, mom of 2 kids. I mean, the list goes on and on. So with so much, let's kind of go down the acting path and how you started with that and how you got interested as a young child and how that's led you to where you currently are.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I remember being 3 years old and I had 3 things that I wanted to be.
Oh my
Literally,
gosh.
I remember this. It was 3. I wanted to be a teacher, an actor, and a trapeze artist.
I love it. I wish you had like art to go with it, like little drawings of each of those things.
I know, right? Like you just could see it. And that's the things I would play. Like I would play teaching. That was my make-believe playtime. I had imaginary, students. I would put on, circuses in my yard. And I had seen something. I mean, I just wanted to be a trapeze artist. And actually, I ended up trying trapeze and went, oh my gosh, this hurts so much on your hands.
I was going to ask you if you tried it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I moved to aerial fabric dance.
Oh, good.
And so I do that. So in a way, yeah, I've done it all. And
I have a friend who does it. I'll have to find out if you guys know each other.
See, it's a small world.
I know. Yeah.
It's so fun. And it's just, once you learn how to climb that fabric, there's no going back. It's just, you can climb anything once you can climb a fabric.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So back to the trapeze, like how were you like, did you like to jump around? Were you into gymnastics? Okay.
That's the thing. I didn't take gymnastics. Like I wanted to be an Olympian gymnastic. Like I wanted to be Nadia Comaneci.
Yeah.
I never took gymnastics. But in my mind, I was going to be this world famous gymnast. And that's just the ridiculous part of it is like, I never took gymnastics and I would just do cartwheels. I thought like, if I do cartwheels and like a round off, then, I was pretty badass.
To be fair, you were 3. So logic hadn't probably set in yet.
No. Yeah. But so I did do my Bachelor of Education from Canada. And then I moved to Japan right after I got my degree. And I lived there for 3 years, teaching, traveling. Met my husband, Paul.
In Japan?
In Japan.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
First day. The whole thing.
Gosh.
It's just
Was
so
it
wild.
Like, teaching English as a second language kind of thing? Or how did you get involved in? Okay.
There was a program called the Japanese Exchange Teaching Program.
Okay.
And I remember I was actually the president of the Faculty of Education Students Association at the University of Manitoba. And I was in charge of setting up everything for this event that they were going to be talking about, the JET program. So I was in there listening and I was like, oh, this sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And I'd always had this, not urge, but I've always had this thing about Japan ever since we studied it in 4th grade. Like I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to apply to this. And back then, it was 1991. The program wasn't that big. And so they only took 200 Canadians. And I was one of them. And I got to go to Hokkaido, which is the North Island.
Oh, wow.
Which was awesome. Of course, it's freezing cold in the winter. And I was thinking, oh, Japan, I'm going to be by the ocean.
Cherry blossoms. It's all
no. But it worked out perfectly that I was able to be there because, I met Paul. He was going to live in Hokkaido as well. And we ended up getting married there too. It was, 3 years later.
Within that time, you got married there, that 3.
Yeah, so we got married in 94.
Wow.
Was he a teacher as well?
Yes. The first year he was a teacher and he wasn't going to go on the program because he actually could speak Japanese. When I went there, I was like, yeah, they'd sent me some book through the program, like, here, study this before you go. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. And then I moved there and went, wow, there's a lot of foreigners who actually studied this. Whereas in Winnipeg, it's French, Ukrainian, German.
Sure.
And so I'd never met anyone who spoke Japanese. And Paul had studied it in school at University of Massachusetts. So he wanted a different job through the JET program. It was a coordinator for international relations, and he didn't get it. So he was like, I'm done. I'm not going. And they offered him the teaching position. And his mom said, you know what, Paul, I don't know, door closes, windows open. You should go.
Yeah.
And we met the very first day.
Oh
my
gosh. What a wonderful story.
The international travel. So I just want to set the stage. Like in 94, you were there? Okay.
That's when we left. Yeah.
Now you have so early 90s, but now we have Google Translate. We have all these ways that we can communicate. You went in cold.
So do you know Japanese now? Can you speak it?
Yeah, no, now I speak Japanese, but that was from learning in my little town. Fudan was the name of the town. And it was 6,000 people in that town. And I taught at all the elementary schools, 6,000 people, but they had 6 elementary schools, 2 junior highs and a high school.
Wow.
And so I taught them all. And, it's so true about my daughter, she's 17 and she's like, how did you guys travel? And it's like, well, we had a map and
how did you figure it out?
Some phone number from some place. And
right.
I now it's really hard to imagine, right? Like how
Yeah.
We were so
we did
resilient
it.
and we didn't even know, right? Like
I
we
know.
just like used what we had. And now it's just everything's so easy, right?
Oh, yeah.
And back then it
Mhm.
wasn't hard either because that's just what you pulled out a map,
You didn't know any different.
you stopped at a payphone if you had to call somebody. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm terrible at reading maps. And so my daughter, she asked me that question the other day. She goes, "What did you do?" And I was like, "Well, I think we asked people a lot. And then I wrote down landmarks, like turn left at the
yeah.
Taco Bell, like
No, seriously. Like I think about how we were probably better with communication. We were probably better with our internal compass.
yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
now I worry a little bit about my kids. If their phone dies, I'm not sure that they'd be able to get around.
Yeah. It's a
Like,
legit
just stand
worry.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, like we
Legit.
rely on everything with that stuff. And before also, like now we Google everything.
Yeah.
And before we had to kind of sit and ponder and wait for someone to go, "Oh, I remember the name." But
Yes.
now it's like, "Oh, we just Google it and find it."
I actually just
So
heard something about that. And I think it was related to uncertainty. And this woman was saying that this is like the ease of information now and the being able to Google stuff. It gets us out of that discomfort of uncertainty. And so we don't have to be resilient in that way anymore. And I found that so interesting because I hadn't thought about it in that way.
wow, that is, yeah.
They don't have to
That
feel
is-
uncomfortable, even for 2 seconds.
Because they
Well,
can find the answer, right?
Yeah.
We all grew up getting lost, right?
Yeah.
And it's sort of important to have been able to get yourself out of being lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not a skill that's out there anymore because no one's lost
Right.
physically.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And so,
in other
and-
ways, yes.
right, in other ways, very lost. But yeah, I find that interesting that that's sort of a developmental thing that is being, well, lost, is
Yeah.
that we don't get lost anymore. So kids don't have to figure out that. And I remember my daughter, she was separated from her ski class when she was pretty little, and she figured it out.
Yeah.
And I'm always grateful for that. Like, I'm like, okay, we have one time there where you
One
got
win, yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Appreciate it when you can.
Yeah. So Barbara, so Japan, it sounded, like obviously life-changing. You met your husband. After living there, you came back. What path did you then go on to kind of lead you down the acting?
Well, that's an interesting question because my degree was a Bachelor of Education with a double major in English and theater. And that I did the degree because I wanted something to fall back on in case, the acting didn't work out.
Yeah.
So when we came back, I was, trying to teach in different places, or I guess I was applying to teach, but I realized because my Canadian certificate, I needed to get a Colorado certificate of teaching. So immediately I could only get jobs that were at private schools. So I taught at a private school in Boulder for a couple years. And then that was when you'd go through the newspaper and see auditions in the newspaper. And I auditioned for a comedy troupe called Head Games. And I got in it. And I started performing there every Friday and Saturday night. And that's where I met Linda, who's my business partner for the Secret Comedy of Women. And also my business partner, Matthew Taylor, which is our original troupe, ACE, which is American Canadian Englishmen. And we created all these shows together. So all those years of doing that, and then I went and I auditioned for a play, and I got into that, and an agent was in the audience. And she came up to me after the show and said, "Who's your agent?" And then I was like, "I don't know. I don't have an agent." And then she said, her name was Patty Kingsbaker, and she was awesome. And she's now retired, but she was the one who picked me out and said, do you do camera work? Do you do modeling? I was like, no, I don't. Only in my bathroom,
Right.
with the hair dryer or the
Yeah.
shampoo bottle. As a kid, like that's all I did. I would read things and, put the air dryer on my hair and go, "You've got it, Park Pontiac." So anyway, I got in with Donna Baldwin Agency, and I've been with them this whole time since
my gosh.
1995. Yeah.
So when you left, you came straight to Colorado?
Yeah. So we left Japan and we were married and we weren't sure where we were going to land. And so we stayed with Paul's mom for about 6 months and then we just never left Colorado.
Okay.
So we started making friends and I was starting to get into shows. And so that was kind of the beginning of it all. And so, I started doing lots of commercials. And so I had to finally quit my job teaching because 1, acting was much more lucrative. And 2, sadly enough, it was much more lucrative.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Don't get me started. And Patty always said to me, she goes, "I'm so glad that you had a low paying job because I was able to always be available. And that was kind of rare in Colorado to be able to be an actor full time."
So are they pretty quick, like with, having an agent when they need somebody to step in and do a commercial or to do a gig? Is it pretty fast acting? Like, hey, we need you like next week, or is it kind of more?
God, yes.
Okay.
Sometimes you get an audition and they're going to be shooting in 3 days. Since COVID, now we're doing all of our auditions online, but I do voiceover. I do commercial. I do film. Right before COVID, I was in a film called The Social Dilemma.
Oh yeah, we were going to talk about that. Yes, which I've seen and which Jenny saw. Yeah, and now I'm like, I have to go back and watch it.
I know.
Yeah, and it went crazy on Netflix, and so that was really exciting. And then with Linda and I, we were creating these shows with our business partner Matthew Taylor all these years, and now the buzzword is immersive theater, but that's really what we were doing before there was immersive theater. We would create these shows that we would perform 1 or 2 nights. And if we didn't find a theater, we would do it on a bus or in a park and they were amazing. Oh, wow. Yeah. And it was really exciting time because we were just so full of ideas and creativity. And Matthew was out of town and Linda found her diary and she called me and said, "I found my diary. Oh my God, this is so funny." I said, "I'll be right over."
That's the perfect response.
Yeah. We sat in her kitchen with our diaries because I had one. She has all these little kind of coil ring notebooks and I have a 5-year diary. And so it really shows the difference kind of between us two, like who we are.
Like personality
stack of these little, nothing was locked. I had the key, everything. And we wrote the show based on that day we were laughing so hard, and I just remember going, "This could be a show."
Yeah.
And so we created a show just around the theme being female, and brainstormed all these ideas, did the show, and backstage after the show, we're like, we have never had that response before. Just
and what's the name of the show? We haven't.
The Secret Comedy of Women.
Okay, perfect. And it's been running how long now in the Denver area?
Since 2008, professionally throughout the country and in Canada. So we're going to be back at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts in January 3rd to the 28th at the Galleria Theater. And this will be our 6th time performing at the Denver Center.
Wow. Yeah, Lori and I are going to go. So if anyone would like to join us, we will be there.
Yes, for sure. So I have a question. Throughout all these years of doing the show and balancing being a mom. So let's talk about that. You are a mom and you have 2 kids. Yes. Let's kind of dive into a little bit more about how you've juggled it all, how old they currently are, and what it's like to evolve as you in your own career and yourself, and then also be a mom. Like, how did you do it all?
Well, I think we all just do what we do, right?
Yeah.
You look backwards and you go, how did we do it?
Yeah.
We just did it. And Isabella is now 17. She'll be graduating in May. And I can barely say those words without wanting to break down in sobbing tears. The thought of her moving out, you guys, it's killing me. It is killing me. And my son Gavin is 15. And they're both great kids and just really good people in the world and really smart and funny and quirky and athletic. And they're just a joy to be around. And I'm grateful that I was able to, because of my career, I actually was able, they'd come on tour with me.
Oh my gosh, how fun.
And so they've grown up with the show. They've grown up, if I was doing voiceovers, I would just hold them.
Yeah.
And, be in the booth at the studio, voicing the commercial while I'm holding my kids.
Do they have any interest in the same kind of work?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No.
Which is good and bad, right? You have those kids that see their parents growing up doing one thing and they see it and they want to do it. And then you have the kids that grow up that appreciate all that their parents are doing, but have absolutely no desire to be in that industry. Yeah, no. Isabella definitely is political science, journalism. She's great on camera. They both have been with the agency and done different commercials and things like that throughout the years, but it's just not their passion. Yeah. But I taught them improv and I'm always like, hey, you going to join the drama club? And they're like, oh, Mom.
Right. Well,
no, we're taking AP Chem. I'm like, okay, but what about a drama class?
Yeah. You need to be well-rounded.
Right.
I was telling Lori before we hopped on, I am dying to hear more about improv. And one of the things that I had heard is that it can help you be a better listener because you actually have to pay attention to everything the person prior to you, like your partner, is saying, and then respond accordingly. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your improv experience and how you got involved.
Well, so in grade 12 in high school, I was in the drama class, of course.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling my kids, like, you're missing out.
Yeah.
And I actually won the drama award that year in my senior year. And we studied commedia dell'arte, which is this old Italian form, which is you have these set characters. There's always these set characters, but you don't know what they're going to say. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I fell in love with it. Like, I was like, I love this. And I grew up watching Carol Burnett.
Yeah.
And SCTV, which was, Eugene Levy and Andrea Martin and Rick Moranis and, John Candy, and every Friday night, watching them. And so that's what I wanted to do. Like, I just had that in me. That was the type of comedy I wanted to do. And so when I moved here, because I taught improv in Japan. Like, I was desperate. I was just wanting to perform whatever. Yeah. But that's why I saw that in the newspaper at Head Games, and I tried out. And I am so grateful for that opportunity because we played games at the beginning, but then we morphed into long form.
Okay.
And for years and years, that was really kind of the only improv in town. And now there's so many different opportunities for people to learn improv. And my husband took it just to be a better presenter and be better at work. Because all the rules in improv are life rules, like be a good listener, don't deny people, say yes and, add something, gift people information, pay attention. So I think there's a show that sometimes I get to play in called Script Prov. And we play this in Golden. And anyway, it's two people get it's a scene. Two people do a scene, and then one of the people leave. And then an improviser comes in who has not seen it. And they perform. And so the person who was doing the script stays on script, and the improviser just does whatever they want to do.
Interesting.
It's so fun. So that's script prov, and that is such a joy. So if you get a chance to take a class, absolutely I should actually teach some classes.
I want to take a class and I want my husband to take a class because for that reason, like it helps you in so many other aspects of life, right? Listening.
It helps you be uncomfortable, right? Like to figure out how to, be confident too, I would imagine, right? If you're kind of a shy or reserved person, like how to, even if you're not, just how to react, right? And
be in the moment.
Yeah.
You have to, if you're thinking about what you're going to say, it's never going to work. Or if you're trying to be funny, it's never going to work. And I think the thing about improv is you got to be there. And once it's over, it's over. It's like,
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I do teach a course. I've taught it at the Denver Center a couple of times called the Complete Actor Workshop, because my belief is the best actors are improvisers as well. And when you can improvise and act, you've got so much more than just being an actor or an improviser. So you should have kind of both skills together.
So totally switching topics. I saw you have a 5th degree black belt. You want to tell us about that and how you got into like kicking people's asses? I don't know.
Yeah. So the black belt. Yeah. So, I guess I remember seeing a Tide commercial on TV, and I guess they were doing Tai Chi.
Yeah.
In these white gis. And I'm just this person. I just go, oh, I want to do that. Like seeing Cirque du Soleil and the women climbing the fabric. I'm like, oh, I want to do that. So I'll just like take a class because that looked interesting. So when I met Paul, I found out he did martial arts and he had learned in University of Massachusetts. So when he was in Japan, they wanted him to teach a conversation club in English. And he's like, I so don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'll do internationalization by bringing Okinawan, Japanese, like Okinawan martial arts to the North Island of Hokkaido. So that's what he did. And so I was able to learn from him. So I have been training for 33 years.
Wow. Now, are the kids involved in that too, or no?
They just got their black belts.
They did.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, they had little gis when they were babies, but they didn't really start until about 6 or 7 years ago, really training.
How long does it take to get a black belt? Like,
for them, it was like 7 years.
Okay. Yeah. So,
I think, in our society, people go, oh, black belt. I mean, black belt's the beginning. It really is just like you've learned letters, you've learned words, you've put together sentences, you're now writing paragraphs, and now you're writing essays, and that's becoming a black belt.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So it's really just a new starting point. It's not like, oh my gosh, you're infallible. But I do think it's important. I love studying it because I think there's a lot in our culture of like these weekend, mama kicks ass seminars, and it's great. But if you don't practice it, it's not there. And all you need is 3 or 4 moves to really defend yourself.
Yeah.
But it's also about keeping this art form alive. It's a very old art form. So it's a little different than some of the martial arts that are out there. Just it's very traditional what we do. And it's from the South Island in Japan called Okinawa. And we just had our teacher out here, 10th degree black belt.
Wow.
So it's very humbling training with him.
Yeah. So how high does it go? Like I'm unfamiliar. Like
10.
What's above?
Wow.
10 is the top. All right.
10's the top. And so I made 5th degree last year in Okinawa. And, I'm just still learning. But I do think martial arts or any type of sport helps women to carry themselves a certain way. Yeah. Predators think twice about a woman who's carrying themselves a certain way or walking a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So I really love teaching women. And I think it's really important to understand that it's not size that matters.
Right.
We're all human, and we all have joints that just only move a certain way.
Yeah. Well, and it has to give you some form of comfort knowing, I mean, I'm assuming your daughter is probably going to college next year, or at least some form of being out on her own, and knowing that she's got some skills to protect herself. That's a big deal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Which leads me to my other, one of my favorite sports, hockey. So as we said at the beginning, Barbara and I met on a hockey team, and she's from Canada. I am not. So I kind of wanted to get her background and being passionate about hockey and how she kind of found her place on the ice.
Well, my kids, I did not want to be a soccer mom. I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
So when Gavin was in kindergarten and Isabella was in second grade, and I signed them up at Skate City inline hockey.
Oh, yeah.
Best deal ever. And it's $75. They give the kids free skates. If you don't have equipment, they've got equipment there. It was awesome. And they did that for several years. And they just learned to play hockey, and they would play in tournaments. And then I guess Isabella was maybe 12, and she was sort of not happy playing with the boys anymore.
Can't blame her.
She's like, they don't want to pass to me, and there's this and that happening. I just want to be on a girls' team. So I looked, and there was no all girls inline hockey teams, still aren't. And so I started looking at ice hockey. So signed her up for ice. She still plays 19U hockey.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah. And then my son, the year later, he's like, well, I think I'd like to try ice hockey too. And he's a goalie. Goalie moms, man.
Oh.
we have it bad. It's so hard to watch.
Yeah. My 6-year-old, that's all he has asked Santa for. Mind you, right now, he just is a little skater out there, right? Trying to figure that out. But he is dead set on all he wants from Santa is a goalie kit. He wants pads. He wants everything. And I'm like, he's like, that's all I want from Santa. And I'm like,
oh my gosh, it's terrifying.
Really? That's all you want? And he's like, yep.
Well, my heart goes out to you because they grow so fast and the equipment doesn't get any cheaper.
Right.
And we finally got like Gavin the helmet from, it's bulletproof, for God's sake. Literally bulletproof, because I was like, I can't watch this anymore.
Yeah.
Like I can't watch him get hit in the head with these pucks, because the kids are only shooting harder.
Yeah.
15, man. Those are strong shots coming.
Yeah. So I just kind of, to answer your question, I had played inline as well, but it was like at 11 o'clock at night, and I couldn't really keep that up. And so watching them play, it was about a year ago or a year and a half ago, where I was like, someone had told me about a lunch league, and I was like, okay. So I showed up to this lunch league. I did not even have the proper equipment at all. Like, my kids play, but I was just oblivious to what I needed. And I signed up and immediately was offside every other second. And they were trying to explain to me what offside
inline,
were.
they don't have offsides, right? I used to play inline too, and it doesn't exist, right? And same thing, you start playing ice hockey and you're like, although I played soccer for many years, right? It was just a whole different, yeah. So I hear you. I was right there with you, Barbara. Offsides.
Oh, yeah. Well, and like all the guys were trying to explain offsides to me. I'm like, dudes, I know what offsides is.
Yeah.
I've watched my kids. I've been watching hockey since I was a kid. Hockey in Canada every night, But for me, it was my body, my brain knew the rules. My body was like, what's this?
Line? What blue? What?
Yeah.
So then I just I signed up again this year, and so I guess I'm at the other day, Lori, I was like
20 plus games, right?
Games.
Yeah.
And I'm getting it. And I took some different skate lessons. I got a pair of real skates, and I got my own equipment, and
She's getting good, folks. I'm telling you, Barbara's out there. She's tearing it up. She's getting the puck from guys. Oh man, I'm telling you, like for only, actually being on the ice for the short amount of time that you've been on ice, like the inline skills, my history is in inline too. And the puck handling and the passing, that's all there. But skating, that's like next level. You got to figure it out. So, and I think the short time that you've been on ice, it's incredible. So I encourage, and I'm sure Barbara does too, anybody that thinks it's too late to try anything, it's never too late to try anything. Never.
I want to be the 90-year-old that's like, wow, that looks fun.
I always say the same thing. Like, that's my whole goal, is to stay healthy enough to be able to do that stuff,
Right. Yeah. My son was kind of mentioning this the other day, and he said, like, once you've reached your goal of something, then what? And I'm like, well, there's always another goal, Gavin. Like, there's always something else. The world is full of so many things that you don't know what your path is, because everything is so connected. And what you learn from one thing kind of draws you into something, something else.
The whole, like, would you have thought you'd be playing hockey when you were, teaching abroad? Would you have, like, there's so many things I do now that I'm like, there's no way I would have ever imagined that I would do that. But life has brought me to this point, and then it looked interesting. And, to your point, things connect you.
Yeah. And I think it was just the right time for me to try it. And
she's from Canada, Jenny. She knew at some point in her life she was going to be playing hockey.
Yeah. Well, and I think I told Lori this, that when I was little, I wanted to play hockey. My brother played hockey.
Yeah.
So I would play with him. My dad would make a rink in our backyard, and I would play with his friends sometimes, or we play floor hockey in gym class all the time. But they didn't have girls hockey. They had ringette. And ringette is not a puck. It's a ring. And your stick does not have a blade. They cut off the blade, and it's just a stick. So the girls can poke the stick into the ring and skate with it, because apparently females are not good at puck handling, which I don't know if you've ever seen Lori play, but oh my God, we always say she has the best hands on in the lunch league. And so, it was, and I didn't want to play that. I was kind of insulted. I was like, oh,
rightly so.
A ring and a stick like that. Like,
right.
So I never played. And so that was, times have changed. Now there's girls leagues, and there's women's Olympic hockey teams, and it's awesome. But yeah, I just think the best way to know life is to love many things and try many things, right?
For sure. Totally agree. I was opposite. So my brother played hockey when we were little, and he was obsessed with it. And I just remember those super early morning calls to the ice arena, and those weekends that I'd have to go travel with my parents because he was doing a tournament. And I was like, I don't ever want my kids to play hockey.
So let's talk about that, because Barbara was just telling us a little bit about high school athletics as we were, getting ready to start chatting today. And she said, oh boy, it's been quite the week, and how busy it can be. It's always busy, right? I have a little one, and I have a stepson it's in high school also. But like, when you're really in the thick of both of your kids being active in sports specifically, how do you juggle that all? Because that is a lot.
It is. And I think, when we think about being a badass mom, I think part of it is going, okay, something's got to give here. Like, you have to be open enough to ask for help. You have to also acknowledge that, a lot of what we do for our kids, just because we are all so privileged, right, where we live in our environment, that we have icing everywhere. Like, we just have so much icing on our cake. And it's like, sometimes you don't need all that much icing.
Very true.
It's okay to just be at home with the cake and the things that really matter. And so I think it's juggling what your kids really need and offering them, if you're able to, juggling what the kids really need and their core things that that you need to provide for them, but then not go too crazy with all the extras, because that is not good for them either. And so we've tried to really find a balance. And I really actually want to make a documentary, like a docudrama about youth sports, because there's something really wrong with it.
Oh yeah.
Totally agree.
And because it's become such a money grubbing venture, we've lost sight of kids actually playing, having fun, being supported, not shamed. Do you know that most kids quit at 12 years old? 12.
Yeah.
That's when you should be starting, actually. Like
Because they're
Montessori.
discouraged, right? Because they feel like they're not good enough, or they didn't make the team, or
Well, the other thing too that my kids ran into, and I'm sure you've seen this, basically they say you need to pick a route, right? So back to your point of trying all, like life is a buffet, try all the things, enjoy all the things. And they discouraged that. They told the kids, you need to pick something. And if you do this, you can't do any of those other things. It's
counterintuitive. And actually the best athletes are the ones who can play a bunch of things. Look at how many pro football players were actually also could have been pro baseball players. Now you can't do that. Or hockey players that were also baseball players. You can't do that. Like Gavin was 11 or 12, and he was told to choose, and he was in AAA baseball and he was loving it, but they were starting to practice in December.
Yeah.
And
they don't make it possible, right?
Yeah, he wanted to play hockey.
Sports. Yeah.
And he said to the coach, yeah, but you're going to bench me if I'm not there for practices until I come out of my hockey, my hockey time. And so he had to stop playing baseball so that he could just focus on hockey. And I think youth sports is not for the weak. I mean, it is so trying. The politics are really messed up. And honestly, I think more women should be running these programs because the men I know who are doing it are not doing a good job.
Yeah. They have a different mentality, I think. Like women, we can kind of bring, I think, the whole picture to the plate, whereas I feel like guys sometimes that are in charge of these sports organizations, they are one-sided, right? Like,
well, they see these young kids as pro players, and I'm like, they're 8, or they're 12, or they're 15. They just want to play.
They want to have fun. They want to have fun.
And here's your $2,000 to sit on a bench.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
What? There's something really wrong with that. So it's a passion of mine.
Please do the documentary.
Yeah, please.
And I have an idea as a docudrama, because, there's so many parents who have their own stories.
Yeah.
And I think there is a way to really just to really show the flaw in the system.
Yeah.
And that we never used to play like this, is we're not meant to be like this.
No.
But that's me. I love watching my kids play. And they play multiple sports. They snowboard, they ski, they water ski, they play tennis, they were on swim team, they do karate, and they both play hockey. And so that's a lot for this day and age, because I actually don't know how we managed it, but we did. We just kind of like, okay, what would you like to try? Let's do that. And we really felt it was important to play many things and learn many things and then choose later. But they have to choose so early. It's wrong.
Well, they're taking after their mom.
I know, right? Try it all, right?
Yeah,
try it all.
So let's talk we have a few more minutes here. I really want to promote and talk just a little bit more about your show. So if you could just give a short little summary, like what's it about? Like, it's for women, mostly, not to say that guys can't go and have a wonderful time and enjoy it, but if you could just give us a quick summary of, you say it's about you and your friend's diary and kind of take us through a little bit of what can we expect from it?
Well, it's called The Secret Comedy of Women, and that's what it is. So everyone's welcome, because if you know a woman, which everyone does, you will find it funny. And it's a celebration, a comedic celebration of being female. So between sketch and improv and song and dance and audience interaction and video and audio, it's kind of people liken it to SNL meets the Carol Burnett Show.
Oh, perfect.
It sounds awesome.
So women have said it's like a girlhood reunion, and it's like, you were a girl, oh, I was a girl, and
yeah.
We have had men come to the show and start a standing ovation. A guy who was there with his 7 sisters.
Oh,
and we've had women who saw the show pregnant and now are bringing their 15-year-old daughter.
Oh, I love that.
So we've had 4 generations sitting together, all ages. Women love coming in groups, and they always learn something new about each other. And I think at the end of the day, we all sit there and go, oh, we're all the same. Like we all have kind of the same story. And I'm really proud of this show because Linda and I originally wrote the show thinking it was about us. It was our diaries and, our childhood memories. And then when we performed it, we're like, wow, it's about all these women.
Yeah.
And I remember we were doing the show in Minneapolis, and that's when Isabella, she turned 5 on that trip on the road. And there was this woman who came up to me after the show, and she said she was crying. And, it's a comedy, right? So she's like crying. She goes, I don't know why I'm crying. And I said, it's okay. It's okay. And I gave her a hug. And then she just looked at me and she said, I forgot about that girl.
Oh.
She was, I became a wife and a mother, and I forgot about that girl. And I think that's the thing. It's like some women feel like it's a transformative event because they are going back to their memories. And I think earlier you were saying, like, your question was, maybe it was before we started, that you said, is it still timely?
Yeah.
And it is, it still has legs because we aren't dealing with anything current. No current issues, no current news, no current affairs.
Yeah.
Everything is retrospective. So it's all relevant.
We are all women. We will always be women, and it just all those, I feel like experiences every single one of us can relate to, although a little different, right?
And that man that came with his sisters, he lived through that, through different
7 times.
Yeah, 7 times.
Yeah. And my son, he's seen the show. He was in my belly the first time we did it, or right before, not the first time we did it. He was in my belly right before the Denver Center signed us, because we were doing the show at the Avenue Theater, and it was like trying to stop a freight train, because women would be like, at that point, we never let men come. We were just like doing this fun little secret show thing. And so they would answer the calls and get the ticket buyers. And she's like, well, I would like me and my husband. And like, oh, sorry, it's for women only. And then they're like, oh, okay, then put me down for 10. And but now, of course, men are more than welcome. Everyone's welcome. That was just kind of our little joke in the beginning. But I was pregnant with Gavin, and he is a sensitive soul because he incubated with all that female energy and laughter.
Yes.
So he was the first male to ever see the show.
He probably has a great sense of humor.
He does. And he saw it last year, and he was with his dad and friends in the back row. They were all dressed up. and he was singing the opening number.
Oh, I love it.
He knew it by heart. My daughter knows every single line. They're like, she could do the show tomorrow if I had to,
That's
if I needed her to.
Oh.
But yeah, so we're excited to be back in Denver and, talk about badass women. It's like everyone who comes there is a badass woman. I love it. It
sounds like such a great community that you get to continue to build year after year and just show after show, right? And it helps bring friends together, right? Exactly. And I think that's the most important thing is you do, like, people get together like, hey, Jenny, let's get a group of girls to go. Yeah. And it's just a fun night out. It's an experience that you get to make with your friends while reliving those past memories of what we all went through. Barbra, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we kind of sign off today? If not, I just have we have just a couple minutes. One last question. What are you most excited about? If you could summarize that real quickly.
Wow. I'm excited about listening to all the ideas that are out there.
Yeah.
I'm excited about continuing to learn from my kids. I'm excited about just holding this time that I have with them really close for the next couple years before they go off. And I'm excited about putting laughter in the world.
Yes, we need it. We need
so much of that. Oh my gosh. I want to laugh more. That's my goal every day is to laugh more.
We're
excited to see the show.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. And I love my job and I love what it's been able to afford me. And, if I have this diary that I had since I was 10 years old, and what I would say to my young self is just keep writing, girly, because this thing is gold.
Oh, I love
that. We're going to end right there because that is such good advice. I think that is just everybody needs to take that and run with it. Barbra, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was absolutely a joy learning more about you, about your journey. And we look forward to following, all the new, cool, awesome shit that you do.
Yeah, well, thanks. And to all those badass moms out there, I think every mom's a badass mom. If you've had a baby, you're badass.
Exactly.
Right?
So true.
We say that we wear all these hats, but I don't think they're hats. I think it's like those little those Ukrainian stacking dolls.
Oh yeah,
it's these selves. Yeah. We have all these selves that we are, and they just keep coming out of us, just like those stacking dolls. And we can be any of it. So thanks so much for having me today. And it's just nice to meet both of you, and I hope to see you at the show.
Thanks for listening, friends. And until next time, keep being you and keep being badass.